Hi. Okay, so if you're not currently familiar with the term block gear changing, let me give you a very quick explanation as to what it is, why it's important that you use it in order to pass your Part 2 test, and then onwards after you've passed your Part 3 and you're delivering driving lessons to students. And also, why it's recommended by the DVSA that we do it this way. And also, I'll then give you a quick demonstration so that we can see block gear changing in action. Okay, so first of all, block gear changing is simply the process of skipping out gears when possible, when appropriate. So historically, if you were like me, taught decades ago how to drive, and we were all taught to use our gears sequentially, then the reason behind that was the brakes on our vehicles weren't terribly effective, and therefore the safest way for us to drive, which is why we were taught that way, was to use engine braking in combination with our foot brake to help us regulate the speed of the car, especially obviously when we're slowing down. So typically if we were driving at speed and then wanting to bring that speed right down, maybe for a junction or something like that, then we would start to brake, but then would go from say fifth into fourth, bring the clutch pedal back up again, and you feel that engine braking kicking in, you get a bit of a reaction from the car, and the car's speed starts to slow. Then you go into third, same thing, get a reaction, the car starts to slow down, into second, bring the clutch up again, slows down even more, and then finally back into first, when we're preparing to come to a complete stop and then we're wanting to go again. These days, because brakes are far more effective than they used to be, the recommended way for us to all drive now, including the way that we teach novice drivers, is to use the brakes more than we use our gears. So in a similar situation, say we're traveling at speed, we tend to leave it in either sixth or fifth gear and just brake only, keep braking, progressively braking, let the speed of the car come down, brake only, and then if we were coming to a complete stop, then it would just be clutch all the way down and then sliding it in from either sixth or fifth straight into first as the car is coming towards a stop, and then we're ready to go again. Okay, so that's kind of quite an extreme example, but once you get the hang of block gear changing, it's something that you're going to be doing on a regular basis. Now, the reason it's important for us as drivers and also driving instructors to use this is because it's just a more effective and efficient way of driving. The cost of your gears or your gearbox and your clutch is far higher than the cost of replacing brakes. So the less wear and tear we can put on our gearbox and also our clutch, then the more efficiently we're driving in terms of looking after the car, if you like, okay, and reducing our maintenance costs. We're also using less fuel by using block gear changing, and as a consequence we're pumping out less fumes into the atmosphere. So block gear changing is part of what we call eco driving, okay, which is a term you may have come across. If you haven't already, you certainly will do. And I think eco stands for both economy and ecology. Okay, so we're being as economic as possible in the way that we're driving, but we're also doing our bit to look after the planet. Now, as a consequence of the DVSA's recommendation that we should all drive this way, therefore, if I can get my words out, it's important that you're able to demonstrate on your Part 2 test that you are able to use block gear changing yourself as and when it's appropriate to. It doesn't mean to say you need to use it with every gear change, as we'll look at in a moment. That's impractical and wouldn't be a good idea, but there are plenty of times, again as we'll see in a moment or two, where you can skip out gears quite easily, quite appropriately. As I say, we're being mechanically kinder to the car, we're using less fuel, so we're being kinder to ourselves in our pockets, and we're pumping out less fumes, so we're being kinder to the planet as well. Now, obviously, if you can't demonstrate your ability to block gear change on your Part 2 test, then the route that you go will definitely present lots of opportunities for you to use block gear changing. Then you're going to be picking up driving faults, and ultimately you're not going to be successful in passing your Part 2 test. So yeah, it's really important that you get into the habit of doing this if it's not something that you already do. Now, I appreciate if you've used sequential gear changing for years and perhaps decades, then it might be a bit of a challenge for you to get out of your old habit and into this new, better habit. But I'll go for a little quick demo drive now, just so that you can see it in operation, and I'll give you a few tips as well, which I think will help you hopefully get your head around block gear changing nice and early, and it shouldn't be too long before it just becomes second nature to you. It's just your new norm, so to speak. Okay, so I'll get the camera turned around now, just so it's pointing straight out the front window. You should be able to see my hand on the gear stick as well from the camera that I've got set up at the side. And yeah, let's get the car moving and see what you think. Okay, so I'm setting off from the car park now. I'm just going to go for a short little demonstration drive. It's probably only going to be between 5-10 minutes, something like that. Now, as I'm in the car park, it's only a 5-mile-an-hour speed limit. I'm going to keep the car in first gear at the moment, and as I exit the car park, I'm going to turn left. Okay, you're going to have an opportunity to go in a moment. So this will be the first block gear change I do. Okay, so I'm putting away in first, building up speed quite rapidly, and then from first into third. The revs are around about 1,500 revs at the moment, just coming up to around about, so I'm going to bring my speed down, drop it into second gear. Okay, and now I can see we've got a national speed limit coming up ahead, and I can build up speed, so I'll go from second to fourth. And now I'm in a national speed limit, I can build up speed rapidly again. Rev counter's coming over too, so into the middle, over and down into sixth. So just in the space of a few seconds, you can see I've skipped out quite a few gear changes there, excuse me, which have been completely unnecessary. Okay. Now I'm in sixth gear and I'm coming up towards the end of the road ahead, and when I get there I'm going to be turning right. Now at the moment I can see that there is a van up there that's blocking my path. Oh, they've disappeared now. But I'm still going to need to bring the speed right down, and the likelihood is I will need to stop. So I've got it in sixth gear, just bringing the speed down with the brake only, still keeping my left foot away from the clutch. Now sliding it into first gear as I'm rolling up to the giveaway line, and then looking for the opportunity to go. So again, pulling away at the junction, first into third. Build up speed rapidly again. Rev counter is coming over 2,000 revs from third to fifth. Build up speed again, fifth to sixth. Okay, so as I said, it doesn't mean you can't sequential gear change when it's appropriate to do so, but just don't do it when you don't need to. So if you're the sort of person that might find it a bit of a struggle in getting out of the habit of sequential gear changing into block gear changing, then let me give you a couple of tips that might help. Okay. So first of all, I know this sounds a little bit weird, but it's because it's going to take your brain sort of conscious effort to get out of this old habit and into a new one. What I want you to do is put your brain in your left foot and tell it to stay away from the clutch for as long as possible. Okay, so coming up to a roundabout, I'm going to go straight on when I get there. Okay, so I know I need to slow down, but I'm trying to get out of the habit of sequential gear changing. So I'm just starting to bring the speed down progressively with the brake. Brain in left foot, stay away from the clutch, stay away from the clutch, stay away from the clutch, stay away from the clutch. Get into second gear now, clutch back up, clutch back down into first, pull onto the roundabout. Stay away from the clutch, stay away from the clutch, into third. Stay away from the clutch, stay away from the clutch, build up speed, stay away from the clutch, brain in left foot, clutch down from third into sixth. Okay, now, yeah, obviously you're going to feel a little bit daft driving around telling yourself or telling your left foot what to do and when to do it, and it's not something you're going to do forever and a day. But it really will help you to sort of focus your mind on what your left foot is doing and getting it to stay away from that clutch pedal as much as possible. And you can then also use a similar trick, if you like, that isn't directly related to block gear changing in so much as when to do it, but it's the way you actually control the gear stick. Okay, so what I want you to do is get into the habit, just for a period of time, of doing two-stage gear changes, and I'll show you what I mean here. Okay, so I'm preparing to turn right from a main road into a side road, bringing my speed down with the brake, brain in left foot, telling it to keep away from the clutch. Now, from sixth into the middle, hand off, back on, into second, hand off, clutch up. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're using sequential gear changing or block gear changing. If you get into the habit of doing slow, smooth, two-stage gear changes, then again, it's really focusing all of your attention on what you're doing with the gear stick and the gearbox, and also, you know, how you're using the clutch pedal as well. So from second into third now, clutch down, into neutral, hand off, back on, up into third. Okay, build up a little bit of speed, clutch down, into neutral, hand off, into fourth. Now I know technically I'm doing a tiny little bit of coasting there because I've got the clutch down, you know, maybe for half a second to a second longer than I need to, and it's not the way that I would obviously recommend you changing gear on a regular basis, but yeah, as a practice technique, using two-stage gear changes will again sort of really focus your attention on which gear you're in and which gear you're going into next. Okay, so here I'm picking up speed. I want to use block gear changing again. Now I'm telling myself I want to go from fourth to sixth, putting my brain in my left foot and also into my left hand. Okay, so clutch down, into neutral, off, across, down into sixth, and clutch up again. And then a little bit further up this road, we'll have a look at that as we're dropping the speed. coming back into a 30 now, so I'm going to go back from 6th into 4th. So again, brain in left foot and left hand, clutch down into neutral, hand off, very, very light pressure on the gear stick, dragging it back into 4th. Okay, and this is stuff that you can go out and practice straight away. You don't need, as I frequently say, to wait for a dedicated training session to start getting your head around block gear changing and making it your new normal, as I mentioned earlier, and for it to feel pretty effortless to you as well. Okay, the more you do it, the more practice you get, the easier it will become, I promise you. So I would recommend you doing this every time you get in the car and drive. Okay, whether that's by yourself or with somebody else, doesn't matter. But you definitely don't need to wait around for a dedicated training session for a trainer to show you how to block gear change, because really all they're going to show you is what I've just shown you now. So I hope that did make sense. I hope you found the techniques or training tips that I've given you helpful. Please give us any feedback via email or comments. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Okay, cheers, bye.